Hey crafty friends, it's Joy here. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are having a really awesome day. I have 3 cards for you today using some brand new products from scrapbook.com. They sent me a bunch of stuff, so I'm gonna show you what they sent me and then we're gonna create the cards. It is a little bit of a longer video, but we've got 3 awesome cards. So the first thing that they sent is the Snow Globe stamp set. Isn't that so cute? I'm gonna use that. Then you have the Winter Wishes and Spruce Sprigs, Home for Christmas. Then there is Flower Fields, a Mosaic die, A2 die. Then the Spring Floral A2 die, Layered Roses, Spanish tile, and then Starburst stencil. So for this first card, we're going to use a Starburst stencil. I have their silicone mat down, and I'm going to tape this first stencil in place. There's 2 stencils, and I'm going to be using some of some metallic inks that they have. I will be using rose gold and gold, and then their little dome blender, foam blender tool to blend those on there. This card kind of has the feel to me that I wanted to have the feel for like New Year's. I don't ever make New Year's cards, but when I saw the stencil, that's the first thing that popped into my mind. And then having these metallic inks, I thought that would just be a ton of fun. We're also going to be using some of their new Cloud Whip, and if you don't have your hands on it yet, you need to get some. I think it might still be showing out of stock, but you can definitely click the notify me because you want it. It is a huge jar of texture paste and it is fantastic. So you can't really see on the camera, but this does, like I said, the ink is metallic, so it's a lot of fun. Now here is the second stencil. This has a bunch of fun stars that kind of go in and around, and I'm going to use this Cloud Whip, and you can see how big that jar is, but I'm also going to be sprinkling on the Distress glitter, the Clear Rock Candy glitter from Tim Holtz. So I'll peel back that stencil. I'm going to get a little piece of scratch paper, and then I can sprinkle all of that glitter on, and it's gorgeous. So definitely wash your stencil immediately and all the surfaces that have that Cloud Whip. Now I am using this other gorgeous stencil. This is the Spanish tile stencil. I'm using it on some Kraft cardstock with Hero Arts unicorn ink. I'm gonna put this on my work surface. I don't have any other ink that I'm gonna contaminate the ink pad, but I just like to do this all the time so I stay in the habit of it, so I don't get that ink pad really dirty if I did have like an inked up background. But look at how pretty that is. Okay, on another piece of Kraft cardstock, we are using the Snow Globe stamp set. You guys, this is so cute. I love this. It's got cute little houses and trees and snowflakes. You get to add the roof and the chimney and the door, which I totally stamped the house and roof, and I didn't record it, and I'm so sorry, but I will show you the rest. So I'm using some Ranger Archival ink. Excuse my ink pad. I need to re-ink it. I actually need to buy a re-inker so I can re-ink it because it's pretty dry. Then I stamped in Peacock Feathers the cute little house, Black Soot Distress Oxide ink for the roof, and now we're going to add the door and the chimney, and I'm going to use the new Lumberjack Plaid, but not the Distress ink. And I'm just showing this. I kept the still image so you guys could see what I stamped because I forgot to stamp it for you guys. But I am going to use a small acrylic block because the stamps this small don't want to stand up for you to grab it on your MISTI. Does that make sense? So I had to use a little acrylic block. So we did a red door, and then we're going to do a red chimney. I love the red and turquoise combo for Christmas. I think it is so pretty. So then we've got the little trees, and I'm using Distress Oxide inks for that. And I'll be using Rustic Wilderness and Pine Needles because I want it to have 2 different colors. First I had to add a little detail trim on the roof, and I'm going to do that in the Lumberjack Plaid. And again, because it's a really small stamp, I just used a really tiny acrylic block. Then we can get going on these trees. There's 3 different sizes of trees, which is perfect. Then there's another like big tree that doesn't have, these are like pine trees. The other tree is just like sprigs. There's no leaves on them or anything, so it's definitely meant for winter time. I'm going to do the big one and the small one, and then I can come back, or excuse me, the big one and the medium first. And I believe I did that with Rustic Wilderness, and then the smallest one will be in Pine Needles. I wanted to do 2 different colors so they would stand out differently from each other. So let's ink that up. I love this on the Kraft cardstock. Now the reason why I did this on the Kraft cardstock is because I wanted to be able to stamp with that unicorn ink. That way you could see the snow and the snowflakes. So that's why I did that. If you wanted to do it on white cardstock, then you could do your snowflakes in a fun like light blue or teal color. Okay, so that was the last little tree. Here is the snow itself. I was trying to actually space it out. I will have it go over the house and the trees, and when I do that, I wipe it off on a towel and then re-ink it so none of that ink transfers to my ink pad. I was trying to like really space it out, but I actually ended up going over it, which I really liked because it really did feel like a snow globe when there was a ton of snow when you shake them up. So overlapping that snow stamp actually was a huge plus. I'm going to place 3 of these snowflakes in the background and use the same unicorn ink, but I'm going to ink it up 3 times to really get a difference between these snowflakes and the snowfall in the background. Then there's also the sentiment that says Happy Holidays, and I'm going to do that in white ink as well. And remember, it's white pigment ink. It takes a while to dry, so don't get your hands on it because it will smear. So, you know, give it a little bit to dry. And by the time I was finished with all of the projects, this was definitely dry. So I'm going to line that up in my MISTI, making sure I'm going to stamp that straight. And I do trim down this card panel a little bit more. I wanted it a little bit smaller once my whole image was completely finished. I'm going to add a little white mat behind it just to break up all of that Kraft cardstock. I'm going to use the 1-inch foam adhesive from scrapbook.com to give this a little bit of dimension. And then I can center that in this card panel, and then this will be placed on a white A2 size card base. Okay, let's go to our last card. This has fun coloring. I'm going to do some Zig Clean Color Real Brush Marker coloring. So I've got some watercolor cardstock. I'm going to stamp the fireplace and the tree. Now, I will say I should have stamped the tree when I was done coloring because I kept sticking my hand in it because it wasn't dry. And I used the Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide ink. I was able to fix it, and you can't even tell because I added a wood floor. But I would say just stamp that after you color your other image. I like to use zigs because I just think they're so pretty and so fun, and we're going to make this a real fun red fireplace. I do bring in a little bit of brown to kind of tone down the red and give it a deeper color. So I'm going to stamp that with that same jet black archival ink from Ranger Ink, and I'll be stamping it quite a few times, which I won't be sharing because my ink pad is so dry. But now I got a good stamped image, and I'm going to start coloring. I've got, what color am I using here? This is Geranium Red, so it's a little bit deeper. And I'm just going to start laying down the color. I just like to, for the most part, use one color and then blend it out with my paintbrush with water to give 2 different colors, to give a darker area like a shadow area and a lighter area, which would be your highlight area. So I have a little bit of water in a dish. I have a dry paper towel. I just use a water brush pen, but I don't fill it up with water. I've said this lots of times because I feel like I'm going to get too much water and I don't have a lot of control. So I dip my paintbrush in the water, and then I just tap it off one time on the paper towel to get the excess water off, and then I take it to my paper and start blending. You can always add more color if you blend out too much, which I did on some of the areas. But once I've colored all of this with the Geranium Red, I am going to come in with brown and add a little bit of that to, like I said, kind of tone down the red, darken up some of the areas, and I think it turned out really, really fantastic. Now I do have that cute little striped stocking, and I wanted that red as well, so I actually chose a different red so it would stand out differently, so we didn't have like the same red on red. So here I'm darkening up with that brown, and then I'm going to blend that out just a little bit more. I think this is the brown. Maybe it's still the red. I'll see in just a second. But I did come back in with that red, added some more darker areas, and then realized, oh, I need to bring in that brown and really kind of soften everything. And it turned out good, and it just, yeah, it darkened up that red. It turned out fabulous. That was the brown. Okay, so that's what I did. And as you can see, it looks so much better. Then I'm using a dark gray for the fireplace where all that soot has built up. Then I want to bring in a bright yellow and a regular yellow. So the regular yellow is going to go on the background, and I want to blend that in so you're getting the light from the fire. And then the bright yellow is going to be for the flames. Just adding that at the bottom, adding a little bit of the yellow at the top, and just blending that out. I do come back in with that bright yellow, and once that's dried a little bit more and darken it up, I'm using brown for the wood, and then I'm going to use the dark gray. I put it on my work surface and then added a little bit of water and added that to the base of the fireplace so it wasn't so dark. Then we have this deep green for this little stocking, and then I did ochre because that's going to be, which we'll see in a second, that's going to be for the ribbon and the green stocking. It looks gold. This is regular red, and then I did light gray for the white stripes, and you can see how well that blended. And then here is that ochre that I was talking about. So this gives you kind of a gold effect, which is really, really, really nice. So I'm going to blend that out, and I do add a little bit more in the darker areas, or to add darker areas, not in the darker areas. That doesn't make sense. The brown for the wood, my brain just totally forgot what that's called. Mantle. Okay. So brown for the mantle. And then I'm going to use that same brown to create a wood floor that obviously the tree and the fireplace are sitting on. So I'm just adding some lines. I'm adding it quite a bit heavy at the top, and then I can blend it down. I did feel like towards the bottom it was a little too light, so I will add a little bit more of that brown. And I'm also adding like little lines to give it that wood grain effect, like this is a wood floor. Now I want to stencil the background because I want it to look like it has wallpaper. And this is the vintage floral stencil from scrapbook.com. I got this last year. I love this stencil. I've used it for other things, and I think it's so pretty for Christmas. I'm using the Weathered Wood Distress Oxide ink and then the blender dome tool. I'm actually blending right over the tree. I am being careful around the fireplace, just getting in the areas that it needs to be. But it's super easy to stencil around these images. I didn't want to stencil first because I didn't want to see that through my coloring. So now we've got this fun, like little vintagey wallpaper. Okay, those cute little Christmas trees from that snow globe stamp set, I'm going to put these on the mantle as the cute little decorations when you decorate your Christmas mantle. So that's what's going to go on there, and I'm just using the Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide ink for those, letting them overlap each other a little bit. I'm going to add one more on the left, and look at how cute this little scene is. Now there is Christmas presents in this stamp set, but I opted to not use them because I just really liked that kind of open floor plan of this background design. And so I left it just as is. But I did want to adorn this tree, so I am using Stickles Christmas Red and Liquid Pearls Marigold. So we're going to have some red and gold on our tree, some cute little red and gold balls, and I think it dressed it up perfectly. This tree kind of reminds me in a weird way of the Charlie Brown tree. It's just so sparse, but it's so cute. So I'm just going to finish getting all of these little balls on here. I've got a few more to add with that marigold. I'm going to add that marigold to the center of that bow on the mantle, and that just gave it a little bit of something extra, which is always fun. Okay, let's go back to our first card because it's dry. I am bringing in the Merry Little Christmas stamp set. I got this last year from them. I'm inking it up with black ink. I'm going to put it over one of those little inked up areas for the Starbursts, and it's going to say Happy Holidays. So I think it's perfect. Instead of saying Merry Christmas, you could give this as a New Year's Eve card. Let's stamp our sentiment on that fireplace. I had to let those dots dry just a little bit because I did not think ahead. I should have stamped my sentiment first and then done the dots, but it's all done now, and so it's dry enough and I can stamp it. I'm going to use the Lumberjack Plaid. This says Happy Holidays. This is from the Snow Globe sentiment, or excuse me, stamp set. Making sure it's lined up straight in my MISTI, and then I can get a nice good red sentiment at the top. And all of these will be adhered to a white A2 size card base. So let's look at all these cards. Here's that first one with the Cloud Whip and the Starburst stencil. Isn't that so fun? I just like this card. I just think it just feels like fun. Then we have our cute little snow globe stencil on the Kraft cardstock. That is so darling. I love all of the snow. And then finally our little Christmas fireplace scene that we colored with Zig markers. So I think that turned out fabulous. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching. I hope that you enjoyed this project, and I will see you guys soon with another video. Have a wonderful day. Bye.